Aloha, I'm Dr. Greg Townsley, inviting you to come to my shows on Friday evening and Sunday afternoon, in which I'm discussing all kinds of things that will be of interest to you, I'm sure, if you want to keep up on what's happening with the pandemic and the vaccine and the virus and so forth and so on. Today, I'm going to look at some papers that are very alarming. I've been talking about this for over 2 years now, warning people that the mRNA platform design of these biologic products is really very dangerous just in how it's made. And that has to do with the fact that these genetically modified biological products, which are not real vaccines and have had no long-term studies, actually put mRNA coded for making foreign proteins, spike proteins, into your own cells, turning them into little factories to make spike proteins. The problem with that is that spike proteins are foreign proteins to your body, and foreign proteins are the #1 trigger for allergy and immune-mediated disease. In addition to that, over time now it has become quite clear that the injection does not stay localized in the deltoid muscle of the shoulder where the injections are given. It was designed to do that, and there was actually a protein that was added to it by a research scientist out of Texas. And this individual came up with a way to help these mRNA platform products to stay where they were put. However, the inflammation that takes place after the injection will, in almost the vast majority of cases, cause that both the mRNA and the spike protein to circulate through your body, both through exosomes that get into your lymphatic system and also into the bloodstream. And they have found now spike protein and mRNA in tissues throughout the body. This is very dangerous because there are ACE2 receptors throughout your body. And that means that without any kind of dosage control, your cells are then making trillions of spike proteins. And the spike itself has now been shown to be pathogenic in and of itself, that it is toxic, that it does cause disease. And the disease that it will cause potentially is the underlying real damage is in the lining of the arteries called the endothelium. So it causes endarteritis, inflammation of the lining of the small blood vessels, and it can cause very serious damage. Now they're showing problems in the liver and permanent damage to the kidneys. And of course, the biggest one is the myocarditis cases that have been talked about. They tried to make it sound like it was rare. The fact checkers tried to who are getting paid, by the way. The fact checkers are all paid, most of them by companies that when they're tracked down and you follow the money, actually comes down to the fact that they are having money infused into them by Gavi, by the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, and by Big Pharma. So today I'm going to talk about autopsy reports. These were actually in the first 2 years of the pandemic, they were actually actively suppressing autopsies from being done on an infectious disease that was supposedly brand new. And this in itself should throw red flags to everyone, because autopsy and histopathology, the examination, the microscopic examination of tissues, the immunohistological staining of these various different tissues in order to show where the damage is coming from and why it's there, should have been done from the start. And so this is in and of itself extremely alarming. Now, this is a paper here on autopsy-based histopathological characterization of myocarditis after anti-SARS-CoV-2 vaccination, showing that the vaccine itself will cause myocarditis. Here's another paper, an autopsy case of fulminant myocarditis after severe acute respiratory syndrome, coronavirus 2, vaccine inoculation. Again, this is not after the disease, it's after the vaccine. Here's another paper here. We'll get into these. These are on actually Graves' disease and damage to the thyroid. Here's another paper on a case of heart transplantation for fulminant myocarditis after COVID vaccination. So again, I've gone over this in many of my shows, but damage to the heart muscle is permanent. It does not regenerate like your skeletal muscle will after damage. And it's extremely important to realize that these vaccines by themselves can cause damage to your heart that is permanent. Typically, they say it's mild cases of myocarditis, but what happens if it's a severe case? So you have to look at the benefit to risk ratio for taking any biological product, but especially these mRNA genetically modified products, because they have an inherent ability to cause immune-mediated disease in your body and will most definitely cause inflammation of your small arteries. If you are over 70 years of age and have a lot of comorbidities and you have fear of getting COVID, even though it's much, much milder now and more like just a seasonal flu or a cold, then you should really consult with your doctor about the benefit to risk ratio, because we are showing all kinds of problems. Here's a study in 23 million residents. This was the Nordic cohort study of SARS-CoV-2 vaccination and myocarditis up in the Nordic countries. And it shows that the vaccine causes damage to the heart in many cases. It's far greater in number and percentage than what they were trying to make you believe. And all of this information was initially stymied and really it was being censored and actively come against by mainstream media, fact checkers who were being paid, and by big pharma who was funding the majority of this. Here is a paper. These are all, by the way, this is standard source material from articles in such as the National Institutes of Health, such as PubMed. All of these can be pulled from the National Institutes of Health Medical Library, the New England Journal of Medicine, Nature, The Lancet. None of these are blogs or opinions. This is a paper here on the spike protein is pathogenic, both from virus and vaccine mRNA. They're calling it spikeopathy. They're coming up with a new term for it. And the number of diseases that it will cause, here's another, SARS-CoV-2 vaccines and myocarditis. Hundreds of papers now from board-certified specialists and research scientists showing the damage that this vaccine is causing to many, many people. And autopsies now being done. It's not being, they can't suppress it anymore. They can't keep the lid on it. So all of the lies that you were being told initially in the first couple of years of this pandemic, if you got the vaccine, you wouldn't get the disease and you couldn't pass it to your older relatives, etc. All of that was an absolute lie. And that has been proven now. In addition to that, there are many different syndromes such as POTS, that's positional orthostatic tachycardia syndrome, where people will stand up and actually pass out or faint. There's the sudden adult death syndrome that's being talked about. There's TTS, the thrombocytopenic problem with this disease, in which there's you have decreased thrombocytes or platelets, and yet it's causing clotting in your blood vessels. So this TTS syndrome is completely now identified and has a name and is being recognized all over the world. And you need to be very, very aware of these things. Here's a whole series of papers on Graves' disease and permanent damage to the thyroid after getting a vaccine, development of Graves' disease after SARS-CoV-2 mRNA vaccination, a case report and literature review. Again, these are coming from, this is from the Public Health Service here. All of these are coming. Now, CDC is even coming out. They can't keep a lid on this anymore. SARS-CoV-2 mRNA vaccination and Graves' disease, a report of 12 cases and review of the literature. Autoimmune and inflammatory thyroid diseases following vaccination with SARS-CoV-2 vaccines. Are you getting the picture, folks? This is a dangerous, mRNA is a dangerous platform for producing vaccines. They had no long-term studies. Anyone who took the vaccine is the stage 3 or phase 3 study, and you have been treated like a guinea pig. Here's a myocarditis-induced sudden death after COVID vaccination in Korea. Histopathologic findings. Again, so now the autopsies are showing and proving that these vaccines have a high rate of causing side effects and problems, and I strongly recommend that no one takes this unless their physician says they absolutely have to, and they're over 75 years of age. This is Dr. Greg saying, come watch my show. I'll give you more info. Aloha.